Welcome. I hear you're having some problems. Please, have a seat. Thank you, sir. It all started when I connected to the internet. Almost instantly, the attacks just started coming. They just kept pouring in. I had to shut it down, unplug the router. I just couldn't handle it. I need to be able to get to the internet. But I got to protect my network. Everyone else I've talked to about this tells me to get a firewall, but the prices are just so high. Have you looked at Cisco Firepower? Cisco? I'm sorry. Sorry to waste your time. I'll go look somewhere else. Hear me out. Let me show you something, and I think it will help you out. Okay. Open it. Cisco made this? Yes. The Firepower 1010. I think it will help you. And I think you can find some room in your budget for it. Yes. This will work. Thank you. Hi, my name is Rich and welcome to the Rich Tech Guy channel, and in this video I have a Cisco Firepower 1010 firewall. So we're going to go ahead and open up the box, take a look at the firewall, what comes in the box with it, and we're also going to get it plugged in, configured, run through the configuration steps, and I will give my review about what I've learned with this firewall and any positives, negatives, or other caveats about this. Now, before I go into this, I am going to have to give a full disclosure. So first of all, I am not employed by Cisco, nor am I being paid to promote this product. Okay, but that being said, I did not purchase this firewall. Instead, it was provided to me by Cisco along with 1 year of licensing as part of attending a Cisco Firepower 1000 series training. So I did attend the training, received this as a promotional part of that. So that being said, I'm still going to give my honest take on it. I'm not being forced to only talk about the positives. So we'll go ahead and get into talking about this firewall and maybe see how many times I say the word fire in this video. If anybody's keeping count, you might want to just go ahead and comment that down below. Also, before I actually open up this box, go ahead and hit that like button if you like this type of content for product reviews. And if you also want to check out some of the other cool technical content on this channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well. So let's have a look inside this box. Okay, let's open this up and see what's inside. Now I've already cut the thing open, and we'll just go ahead and dig into this here. So first of all, we have a USB mini cable here. So USB on one side, USB mini on the other side. That is a console cable for the device. We've got our typical sort of paperwork, QR code for a quick start guide. Okay, next up we've got the let's see, a nice little power brick here. So we'll get that out of the way. There, that's a really pretty large size power brick there. So set that aside. And then what we'll do is we will go ahead and pull out. We've got the main thing itself, the firepower, but also down in here is we've got the power cable to go with the power cord. All right. Let's move that box aside, and we will go ahead and pull that out, and actually let's get it out of the bag. Okay, so here we go, our Cisco Firepower 1010. All right, so let's take a look at that. So that is our device. Now, let's go ahead and get this thing plugged in. So while the Firepower 1010 is booting up, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the specs. The 1010 is in a compact form factor for desktop deployment, measuring in at 7.8 inches wide, 8.07 inches deep, and 1.82 inches tall. There are optional mount kits available for either wall mounting or rack mounting. The hardware itself is fanless and is powered with an external power supply. It has 8 1 gigabit RJ45 Ethernet interfaces. The last two interfaces, 7 and 8, are also PoE Plus interfaces. Additionally, there is a gigabit Ethernet management interface, and because it's a Cisco device, there's an RJ45 serial interface for console access from your old and trusted blue console cable. Also, as I noted in the unboxing portion, there's a 5-pin USB mini console interface, and a USB-A to USB mini cable was included in the box. The Firepower 1010 has a stateful inspection firewall throughput of 2 gigabits per second, measured using UDP traffic in ideal test conditions. The throughput drops to 1.4 gigabits per second when measuring multi-protocol traffic, such as the usual traffic you might find on a network. It also supports a maximum of 100,000 concurrent firewall connections and can handle up to 25,000 new connections per second. When adding in features such as application visibility control, the throughput is 890 megabits per second, and if we add the intrusion prevention system feature on top of the AVC, the throughput drops down slightly to 880 megabits per second. Also, AVC on this box supports 100,000 concurrent connections with support for 6,000 new connections per second. Transport layer security for the 1010 has a throughput of 195 megabits per second. It also has IPsec VPN throughput of 400 megabits per second while allowing for a maximum of 75 VPN peers. This firewall is running on a 4-core Intel Atom CPU at 2.2 gigahertz with 8 gigs of RAM and 200 gigabytes of storage space. The Firepower 1010 can be locally managed either through the console SSH to the management interface or with the Cisco Device Manager. However, the preferred method of management is through the cloud-based centralized management tool Cisco Security Cloud Control, formerly known as Cisco Defense Orchestrator. Inside of Security Cloud Control, the Firepower 1010 is managed in the Firewall Management Center. The main reason why cloud management is preferred is because, unlike the majority of Cisco network devices, the Firepower series of firewalls do not have a typical running config. You can go into the CLI and you can do the show run command, but you will get limited config output. The majority of the configuration and the policies that are applied to the firewall are managed in databases stored on the device. At the time I'm filming this, the list price for this firewall hardware in the United States is just under $1,500. That list price is just for the hardware alone and does not include software licenses, subscriptions, or services, which will vary based on the licenses and terms ordered. All in all, the Firepower 1010 is made for the small office, branch office, remote office type setup. If you are looking for a Firepower appliance that can handle larger throughputs, larger traffic amounts, do greater inspection capability, there are also the Firepower 1120, 1140, and 1150. So now that we've got all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and get onto this and take a look at managing it and configuring it. All right, so here we are in Cisco Security Cloud Control. And this was formerly known as Defense Orchestrator, but as of around the beginning of November 2024, this has changed to Security Cloud Control. So when we first get into this is our dashboard screen that's kind of showing us our inventory, configuration status. We've got some more information as we scroll down to see everything else going on here. Just just our nice little dashboard. Now up at the top, okay, we get a search bar. We also have the AI assistant here, so we can ask it some questions like, yeah, let's create a basic security policy. These are some of the suggestions, but you can ask it and it will generally provide you some data about how to do what you are looking to do. So also we have the announcement thing, which is in the form of this rocket ship. So right here we got getting started, and so managing policies, manage firewalls. Actually the announcements is going to be the next one over. And then we have our notifications panel here. So that's going to load all these fun notifications we have. And this is for syncing up our devices. So I don't have any devices with pending changes. But if I did, I could go into here and get those all synced up. And then we have our support and documentation. And then also right here, I do have it blurred out because it's got some information about employment and such, but this would be your profile, and I can go in and see the preferences and user settings and also sign out. And lastly, we can look at other Cisco applications that we can add to it, things like Duo, XDR, Secure Endpoint. There's also networking applications, so we can bring Meraki in, Catalyst, Intersight for data center networks or data center compute, Thousand Eyes, and so on. So really, Cisco is trying to build out this security cloud control as sort of a one-stop shop for all of your Cisco interfaces. But we are just focusing on the Firepower firewall. So let's go over on the left menu here. And first we've got Home. If you click on that, that takes you here to your dashboard. Insights and Reports we'll go into later, where we can actually see some of the data going on. Then we've got Events and Logs. So we can, again, I'll get into that later. We can pull up events. We can see what's going on with the traffic that's flowing through our network. We can look at the logs about what's being done with our devices. Then we've got our policies. Objects here, that's going to take us to an object menu where we're going to have a few menus out here. And these are network objects, and we create more objects as we go along and build out our policies. And then I'm going to go into Security Secure Connection, so where we can configure some VPNs. And of course, we've got our administration settings. Now, I'm going to go over to Security Devices here. So I've already added this Firepower 1010 into the Security Cloud Control, or actually I did that as part of that training that I did with Cisco. But what I'm actually going to go to first is let's go to our getting started here. And if we wanted to add a new device or manage a firewall, so I have a Cisco Secure Firewall FTD. I want to onboard that. I could click here and we could go into what it would be to actually bring this device on board. There can be a registration key from the CLI, serial number, which is actually what I use to onboard this device. We can bring in FTD in a cloud environment, or if we've got a whole bunch of these things, we're doing a massive deployment, we can use a CSV file to just bring all of them on board at once. All right, so now let's go through the security device, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the Firepower 1010 I have, and we notice this new menu pops up. So all sorts of actions that we can go through. I can go into a health screen to see what's going on with it. Some of the troubleshooting stuff, so packet tracer if we want to see what's happening to packets flowing through it. Packet capture, we can go into the threat defense CLI, issue some actual CLI commands. As I scroll down, device management, we've got our device overview, routing, interface, continuing on, and then also the policies that we might be deploying around it. So I'm actually going to just pop over into the interfaces menu. A lot of times when you go into your device, it's going to take you into the interfaces. So here we have the Cloud Delivered Firewall Management Center, or FMC. Anyways, so we've got our list of interfaces here. Management, Ethernet, those are the only ones actually connected, or Ethernet 1.1. And I've already assigned a security zone to Ethernet 1.1. That's outside. This is so I can actually talk to the device. Interestingly enough, the way this device is configured is I'm actually managing it through that Ethernet 1.1, but if I don't plug the management 1.1 interface in, I get some sort of an alert that pops up saying that, oh, management's not receiving packets. So just to make it happy for this, I've made it, I've actually just plugged it into my network. But continuing on, we'll get back to this and we'll go into some interface configuration. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the device screen. So this is going to give me my general device screen that I can go into, and I can look at all sorts of, sort of like a second dashboard, but specific to this Firepower appliance. All right, so with that being said, we're going to go right back into the interfaces screen. And in this particular case, I want to, so if I want to configure one of these interfaces, like let's say I want to go into Ethernet 1.2 and I want to set up a network on it. So I'm going to click on that pencil icon over on the right-hand side. And it says it's interface. Right now it says port mode is access or trunk, actually, and then I've got a VLAN ID. So this one is actually currently not set up to be a layer 3 interface. So I'm actually just going to cancel out. And right here, we've got this little, right here, switch port. So I'm going to disable the switch port interface. So it says it's going to remove all the interface configurations. Yes, I want to do that. And so now that's changed up. So now what I want to do on 1.2 is I'm going to go ahead and configure it now, and now I get a whole bunch of other configuration steps with it. So I can give it a name, I can assign it a security zone, and so on and so forth. So priority, I can go in, I can configure IPv4 addressing, IPv6 addressing. There's more hardware configuration, manager access, so I could say, yes, I want to be able to manage this interface through this, or manage the device through this port, and I can even configure its own MAC addresses. So general, now let's say I want to hook up a DMZ server to it, so I'm going to just name it DMZ port. And we're going to go into the security zone for it. Well, I'm going to actually create a new security zone, and let's call it DMZ. Okay. So I've now just gone and created that zone. So it's nice that I can go ahead and create the zone inside of the physical interface configuration as I'm doing it. Now I want to give it an IPv4 address. We're going to give it a static IP, and so it says to assign a IP address and subnet mask. I can do either the full dotted decimal notation, or I can do a CIDR notation. If you want to know what that is, I've got a video on subnetting. You can go check that out. But first of all, I'll just give it an IP address. Let's go 10.50.1.1/ and I'm just going to go with the CIDR notation 24. Okay, so let's configure that. Right, what does it say? Cannot contain interface name, cannot contain any... Okay, I can't have spaces in the interface name. Well, all right. So let's change that to an underscore. And there we go. So I've given it the name DMZ port, security zone DMZ. I don't have anything connected to it right now. This was really more for demonstration purposes, but now notice it says I have unsaved changes. So if I wanted to actually deploy that Right now, this is just in a sort of a memory configuration. It's not actually configured on the device. If the device were to suddenly reboot right now, that configuration would be lost. Before I do go into saving changes and actually pushing it out onto the device, I want to do something else. So I've got these other 6 interfaces on the device here. Now, I don't want to make each of these interfaces their own layer 3 interface. I want to just sort of put them all on their own network. So the way we're going to go about doing this is we're going to create what, if you're familiar with configuring Cisco switches, a switched virtual interface. So to do that, I'm going to go up here to Add Interface. Now, there's different interfaces we can add to it. So I could do a sub interface, like let's say I wanted to configure sort of a router on a stick, where I'm going to have a bunch of different 802.1q VLANs feed into the same interface. But that interface itself is a layer 3 interface. That's the router on a stick configuration, if you're familiar with that from CCNA router configurations. But so that way I could do that sub interface. I could do an ether channel interface, so basically like a grab 2 interfaces together, let them operate as a sort of a port channel, bridge group, VLAN interface, virtual tunnel interface, loopback interface, VNI. I'm going to just go ahead and create a VLAN interface. So I'm going to name this inside VLAN. All right. And I'm going to do security zone, and we're going to create a new one. And the new one is going to be, so it's the inside security zone. So it's my internal network behind the firewall. And actually I just remembered, of course it reminded me on the last one, I can't have spaces. So let's do an underscore. VLAN ID, well, it's just going to be VLAN ID 1. I would not recommend using VLAN 1, but you know, this is a lab environment demonstration, but in production, please try to find another VLAN. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into IPv4 and I'm going to assign it a network. So let's go 192.168. I'll go with, say, 111.1 and /24. All right, so this is going to be my inside or behind the firewall network. Okay, so we're going to say okay on this. We're going to configure it, and now it's just created this VLAN 1 interface. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead, and I've got these unsaved changes. I'm going to save those changes. All right. I still have not deployed the changes to the 1010. So this is one of the things that has taken me a bit of getting used to while playing around with this device. So yes, I made the configuration. It's still not set. I've saved the changes. It's still not set. Now I want to actually push these changes onto the firewall. So in order to do that, now I'm going to go up here to deploy. And notice the FP1010 says ready for deployment. I can check that box. If I had multiple firewalls I was configuring, I could just say deploy all. Advanced deploy is where I can actually go in and I can see what changes are happening to it. But here we go, FP1010, deploy. And now I got to wait for it to deploy. It's going to take a while. Generally, I'd say it takes about 2 to 3 minutes to complete its deployment process. If a lot's going on, maybe 5 minutes. I mean, I imagine if maybe I'm doing a complete overhaul of the configuration or just doing a stand up and configuring everything all at once, I could be deploying for maybe up to 10 minutes. But it's going to progress here. So we are going to just work through this. Now, we are going to configure a NAT, so network address translation on this. So that way, if I want to put a device behind the firewall, and then we're going to actually start doing some firewall configuration on it. But in order to do that, either I have to set up the routing through the firewall on my network, or I just go ahead and create the NAT. So we're up to 75%. And the deployment, 83. Generally, 83% is like the last one before it says, yep, it's complete. So we'll just wait for it to finish that out, and then we're going to go into deploying the NAT. So actually, before I go into the NAT, what we will go ahead and do is there is a couple other tabs I want to go ahead and configure here. So let's just continue on as we're talking about this. This, by the way, while I do like a lot of the features and functionality of this, this is kind of my one sticking point in terms of configuring it. I do have, I'll bring up some other stuff when I give my final thoughts at the end after this, so feel free to stick around for that. Okay, we're completed. Okay, so I'm going to go into the routing tab next. And so here I can do all sorts of routing with it. So equal cost multipathing, we've got OSPF, we can go into BGP routing, various multicast routing, EIGRP, RIP, yeah, okay, interface, now it's going to complain to me, VLAN 1 has no link. I will get that rectified pretty soon. But yeah, so RIP, if we want to use a routing protocol from like the 80s or something. And then we've got our static route. So I've already got a static route configured on that outside interface. I've configured the default gateway. So if I wanted to add a route, okay, any IPv4, you know, I can select the interface to do it. So like DMZ port. Now notice on the outside one, it does say defense, interestingly enough, it says Defense Orchestrator Access, the old name, not Security Cloud Control. So that's kind of like a little clue here. Hey, if you mess with this, you might lose the ability to talk to your firewall. So that's a good thing to know. All right, so I'm not going to create a static route in here because I've already got my default gateway configured. But yeah, as I said, we've got OSPF, OSPF v3 for if you're doing IPv6 routing on OSPF, EIGRP, so on and so forth. I'm also going to go into the DHCP tab. I need to configure a DHCP server on my inside network. So we're going to go ahead and configure this on inside VLAN. I can configure a domain name, so let's do ridgetechguy.io, whatever. I've already got DNS servers configured, so I've got Umbrella configured. Now, if I wanted to do something else, I could go add, and I could create another DNS server, but I'm going to use Cisco Umbrella. I can also configure Win servers, so if I don't have a Win server, I could add that to it. And then I need to go here to Server, and let's add. And again, I'm going to select the interface inside VLAN, and I need to create an address pool. And this is actually, it does mention it's in sort of a range of addresses. So I'm going to say, all right, on that inside network, anything 192.168.111. Let's say 100 to 192.168.111.199. So anything in that 100 space is going to get assigned DHCP. I've just given it a bunch here, and then enable DHCP server. Okay. So we've now got a DHCP server set up and configured. So at this point, if I connect a device to it, or to the inside VLAN interface there, which if we go back to our interfaces, so if I create or configure, we've got all these interfaces here. It says VLAN, they're all VLAN 1 access ports. If I connect something to it, it should get a DHCP IP. Now, we'll get to that in a moment, because I will actually, I've got a system that I'm ready to hook up to it. But first I want to configure NAT. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Devices, and over here we've got all our options under Devices here. So I'm going to say NAT. Oh, okay. Well, before I actually do that, it's going to say, hey, look, I've made some changes. Do I want to leave without saving? So no, I don't want to leave without saving. So we're going to get rid of this, and actually, if I'm back over on DHCP, it said I had unsaved changes up here from where I configured all of this. So had I gone on to it, I would have just lost all that configuration and given myself a headache. So I'm going to save it. I'm not going to deploy it yet because we already saw how long that goes. And actually, the next time I do a deployment, I might just strategically insert a cut into the video just to help save time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on NAT. Okay, now we're on the NAT screen. So first thing is we have no NAT policy. So let's go ahead and create a new NAT policy. I'm going to go ahead and name it FPR 1010 NAT. All right, and I'm going to add this Firepower 1010 to it. Add to policy, save. So with my Firepower 1010 NAT created here, I have to go ahead and add a rule to the policy. So I'm going to click Add Rule. I'm going to do a manual NAT rule in category, but I'm actually going to make it a dynamic NAT. So on my interface objects here, I'm going to set inside to my source, outside to my destination. We're going to go to Translate, original source. Now I can add an object and create something here. I already have the object added, so I'm just going to go ahead and scroll down, and I have my inside LAN. Okay, the translated source, I'm actually just going to say destination interface IP. And there we go. We're going to click OK. We have the NAT rule created. And again, I'm going to have to go ahead and save. So what I'm now going to do is if I go up to deploy, it says ready for deployment. Let's deploy. So that DHCP IP address that I had created, or the DHCP server that I had created on it, and the network address translation, all of that which I had created is now actually being pushed onto the firewall itself. So once that is complete, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to pop over to a Linux system that I have, and we're going to check some of the connectivity. Let's see if I actually connected this right. Okay, so I am now on a Ubuntu Linux machine, and I'm going to go ahead and plug this machine in to the firewall. I am plugging it into port 3. So at this point, we don't have anything. This could take a while, so let's just hold on here. What I'm actually going to do is let's go ahead and open up a terminal while we wait. And just give it a moment to run through its connection process. This, of course, takes time. Okay, we now have a question mark connection status. Let's see if I have an IP address. I do have an IP address here, 192.168.111.101/24. Okay. Let's see if I can ping my gateway. I can ping my gateway. Cool. So if I actually, let's see if I actually have the gateway populated. Yes. I have, no I don't, actually. Nope, there it is. Okay, yep, default 111.1. Yes, I do have the gateway populated. Okay, so let's see if I can ping a Cisco umbrella server. So and we're failing. We're not going anywhere. So I can ping the gateway, I can ping the Firepower appliance, but nothing's getting past it. So let's go back in because we've got to do some more configuration before we get internet access onto this thing. So let's hop back into our Firepower Management Console. So why weren't we pinging beyond the Firepower appliance? Okay. Well, the reason is the way the Firepower works is it is going to block all traffic until I give it a policy that says traffic is allowed. Now I could, well, sort of. Okay, so if I had another device connected to another one of those VLAN 1 interfaces, I could ping between those two devices just like I'm able to talk to the gateway interface. But I cannot talk to interfaces from one zone into another zone until I create a policy defining what that traffic can be. So this is actually different from Cisco's previous ASA firewalls, where ASA firewalls, you kind of assigned a value number to each of the zones. And so higher value number traffic could go to lower number value zones. So you would basically set your outside interface to 0 or 1, whatever the lowest one is. You would set your inside one to 100, maybe a DMZ to like 50 or something. And so that way your inside would be able to talk outside, but nothing outside would go inside unless you created a rule allowing it. So that's the old ASA model. The Firepower model is nothing flows, no traffic flows between either zone, any of the zones, until we define what that traffic looks like. So with that in mind, let's go onto the Firepower and configure some policies so that way we can actually have traffic start flowing between the different zones. So I'm going to start off with policies. I'm actually going to go, now the big policy that we need to apply is the access control. There's all these others here. I'm going to go through a few of them. I'm going to start with Prefilter. The Prefilter policy just basically allows it to, if something matches a particular criteria, you can either say, go ahead and inspect it, or you can say, I know this is good, just go ahead and fast track it through the firewall, save resources for something else. So we're going to say new policy, and FPR 1010 Prefilter. Save. So now I'm in this policy. I'm not really going to add any rules here. That would be something that maybe you might want to dig into later. It's really just to add into the overall access control policy. But I do want it to analyze all tunnel traffic. So I set up any sort of VPN tunnels. I want that traffic analyzed. So I'm now just going to go ahead and exit out of here. And instead, we're going to go over to DNS now. So I'm going to create a DNS policy. And let's create a DNS policy, and I'm going to name it FPR 1010 DNS, because I'm going to be really creative like that. So now I'm going to add some DNS rules. All right. So I'm going to go and we're going to name this for any source zones. So the source here, any DNS requests are going to be coming from the inside. And yeah, let's just go ahead and name this block bad traffic. Okay, now I'm actually going to go, I can configure networks, but instead of configuring any of these networks, I'm just going to leave it blank, and it's just going to get everything on the inside zone, and I'm going to go straight to DNS. So we've got all of these sort of DNS types of categories going on here. Basically, I'm going to go to DNS attackers, and I'm going to scroll down to this Tor exit node, and so I'm grabbing everything. There's also a global block for DNS, but that rule is already created, so I don't need to add it to this one. I can do add rule, and I can select what it does. I can say monitor, domain not found, drop it, sinkhole it, whatever. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, leave it as domain not found. So right there. And we're going to add that rule. So it gets added to the block list just below the global block list. Okay, we're going to save the changes that I've made to this rule. That's already in here. And then we're going to go back into policies, and now we're going to set some file policies. So malware and file policies. We want to block some bad stuff going on here. So let's create a new file policy, and it's going to be named bad files, or let's say FPR 1010 bad files. And let's go ahead and add a rule. So I want to block, and what I'm actually going to do is, I don't care about the direction of transfer. I'm going to go ahead and search for, let's say, registry edit files, so Windows registry edits. I don't want those floating around on my network. I'm going to add that. Maybe I also don't want torrent on my business network where I've got this firewall, so we're going to add that one too. And then we're just going to go ahead and save this rule. And we're going to add another rule, and this one is going to be block malware. Now, a bunch of other options here. So we're going to use Spiro analysis, dynamic, local malware analysis, and also leave it at reset config. We could choose to store the files it sees, but instead we're just going to go ahead and select all of the different file type categories, because malware can be masked as any of those. So if it discovers a hash or something that looks like a malware file, it's going to block it. Add and save. So it's going to say, well, some of these file types I've selected, they may not qualify for some of these, but whatever. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Okay. I'm going to go back to policies, and now I'm going to set a intrusion policy. So let's go ahead and create a new intrusion policy. So FPR 1010 IPS. Yeah, I'll throw the word policy. Okay. Now, in terms of prevention mode here, I've got the default is balance, security, and connectivity. I can say no rules active, let everything through, whatever. Maximum detection, which is good, basically going to be like stopping everything. Connectivity over security, to where it's basically I'm telling it, if you're not sure, error on the side of allowing the traffic through. And then there's security over connectivity is the other way, error on the side of blocking it. I'm just going to leave it at this balanced security and connectivity and say save. Let that get configured. I'm also going to go to network analysis policies, and I'm going to basically do the same thing. All right. And I've got similar options here, so I'm just going to leave it at balance, security, and connectivity. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go into the access control, and all this stuff I've put together, I'm now going to build out into an access control policy. So I'm going to create that. We have our default access control policy, which is what it currently is. I'm going to create a new policy. I'm going to be 1010-ACP. And instead, we'll leave it the default as block everything. There's also intrusion prevention, network discovery. So if you're not quite sure what you want to block, you can set it to some of these settings. Grab the FP1010, add it, save. And it's going to say, well, it's already in the default policy. If I do this, I'm going to remove it from the default policy. Well, good. I don't care. Remove it. So put it in this policy. That's where I want it. So now it's going to go into here. So I'm going to start off here. We've got pre-filter rules. So I've got a default pre-filter policy there. I'm going to select the one I created, apply. There's also decryption. I could have gone and created a decryption policy. However, in order to do that, you need to have a security key. So basically what you're doing in the decryption policy is you're a man in the middle attacking your own network so you can decrypt the traffic to see what's in there. I don't have a valid cert right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and pass on to security intelligence. So there's the default DNS policy. I'm going to change it to the one I created. If I have a paid umbrella subscription, I could also set up an umbrella DNS policy and go ahead and get that set. But what I'm now going to do is I'm going to say, yep, any on the networks. We're going to go to the URLs, and I'm kind of duplicating what I already did on the DNS policy, but I'm just going to go ahead and grab all of these here, add it to the block list. So there we go. And now we're going to save this one. Actually, no, I'm going to continue on to, I could do an identity policy if I had a bunch of users out there that was managing it. This is just me managing it on this device, so I'm not going to hook it up to an identity server and create an identity policy. So now the last one here, access control. Okay, so we've got our rules here. I'm going to go ahead and add a rule. It's going to insert into mandatory. Now in this rule, I'm going to create a block bad DNS rule. Insert it into the mandatory rules. I'm going to say block. I'm going to make sure the logging is at the beginning of the connection. Because I'm blocking it, I can't log at the end of the connection because the connection hopefully isn't happening. I'm blocking it. And then I'm just going to go over to ports. And on destination, I'm going to select DNS over TCP and UDP. Add that to the destination. And then I'm going to go to the URLs, and I've got all these categories of URLs. So I want to go through, and I'm just going to select a bunch of these, and I'm going to just start going through and blocking them. So stuff that maybe in a business environment I don't necessarily want. So we're just going to go on through here. Keep going. All right, well, I'll keep on going here. Yeah, we don't want that, don't want that. Actually, I think I missed one here. Yep, let's grab that one. Okay, so high-risk sites and locations, we don't want that. We don't want employees going to illegal stuff on the company network. Block IOCs. And let's continue on. So we'll go with that. Online trading, okay, yeah. And keep going. Yeah, we want to block the phishing stuff. We'll block that. And yeah, I'm going to get rid of that. Okay. We'll block the spam, we'll block the spyware. Tor exit nodes, terrorism. Okay, we are just going to keep on blocking all of, okay, I think, yeah, okay, we'll go ahead and add that one too. All right. So, I think there's one I missed, yes. There were two. Okay, I'm going to block those two. And we're going to add that URL. Okay, so we're blocking any DNS request to that. So now I can go ahead and add this rule. Okay, So that one is now being blocked. I've still got to have the implicit deny any going on here, but need to create another rule. Okay, so I'm going to create another rule in here, and this one is going to be block bad URL. Okay, this is going to look very similar to the other one, but I'm going to, and it almost looks like I'm sort of double hitting stuff, but I'll explain why. So we're going to turn the logging on, log at the beginning, confirm, and I'm just going to go straight to URLs, and we're just going to go right back through a lot of these categories that I did on the previous one. The reason why I'm doing this is the last one was blocking DNS inquiries for these URLs. This one is maybe somebody figured out the IP address or got around the DNS or whatever, is trying to run their own DNS, and so they're going to try to get around. So I'm just going to go ahead and add all of these rules back in, and let's see if I can remember everything, but anyways, we'll continue on and get all of these added back in. So just continuing to add them, trying to figure out what I added previously. Hopefully I got everything. Okay. I think I've checked them all here. We'll find out pretty soon. But anyways, one of the things I also want to bring up is there are regional restricted sites here for depending on which country. So if you've got this deployed to manage traffic in a particular country, you can check one of those boxes to block what the country has decided to ban. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add all those URLs. Let's add it. Now I'm going to do one more rule, and this is going to be the rule that allows anything that I haven't blocked so far, but I'm going to inspect it. I'm going to do some intrusion inspection. So this is going to be allow inspect. Oh, let's get rid of that. Okay. So I'm going to leave it at allow, but I'm also going to put log at the end of the connection. Okay. I can also set syslog servers, SNMP trap, so on. The intrusion policy, I created this policy for it, so I'm going to apply it. And then I also have a file policy. Actually, I think, nope, okay. All right, so I've also got here the file policy that I'd created. I'm going to add that. And then I'm going to allow this basically for anything. So this is what, so I'm not really going to put anything else in here. It's just going to go ahead and add it. It's going to give me this warning. There's no source or destination. Yes, I'm going to apply it because I want it applied to all traffic flowing across the device from and to any zone. Okay. So yeah, everything's just reading any, but it's going to inspect traffic. All right. So now I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to deploy it just as I would do before, but I am actually going to just go ahead and let this happen, and through the magic of editing I'm going to jump to the end of that to save time. So I'm actually back in the FMC because I forgot to do one thing, and I deployed it and it's giving me some errors, so I'm going to go ahead and fix this one thing that I forgot to do. So I need to go into more, and notice there's a caution here on advanced settings. So I got to go in here. First of all, make sure enable reputation enforcement on DNS traffic is set. Yes. Then I need to go to TLS server identity discovery. Let's enable that. Okay. And then I'm going to go down to this network analysis and intrusion policies. And we're going to go ahead and select that IPS policy I created. leave that as default, and then this is going to be the network analysis policy I created. I'm going to say OK. So now I'm going to save that again. I'm going to deploy again, and now we'll hop back over to the Linux server once that is complete. Okay, so I'm back on my Linux system that is behind the firewall, and the pings to Umbrella DNS weren't working before. Let's try that again. Hey, look, it's working. So traffic is now flowing through the firewall and out to the internet. So let's go ahead and test that by opening up a web browser, and I'm going to visit a couple of sites, and we're going to do this. I'm then going to make a change to the policy and show the effect of the change in action. So first I'm going to go to cisco.com. This policy should load, or this website should load. Yep, it's loading up. Everything seems to be fine. And then I'm going to go to one. Now, specifically when I was configuring this, I left the category of gambling unchecked on things. So let's go to a gambling website. And sure enough, the website loads. Okay. So there we go. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and close this browser out, and we're going to hop back over. I'm going to make a policy change, and we're going to go back in and see how it affected things. So we're back in the Firepower, and I'm going to go back into the access control, and we're going to make a couple of changes. So I'm going to go over here to the block bad DNS. Okay, the URLs. Let's go ahead and add a URL to that list. And we're going to go and find that gambling URL right here. And I'm going to add it. Okay, we'll apply. And then I'm also going to add that to this block bad URL. So we're going to go back into URLs. So now I've blocked the DNS request to it. Now I've blocked the actual website itself. And let's go to, there it is, and add the URL. Okay, apply. Okay, so we got to save our changes. Now the other thing I'm going to do is, while it's deploying, I'm going to go take a look at something else. So we're going to just go ahead and deploy that. And while that's running, I'm going to go into analysis, and we're going to pull up the event logging. Now what it's actually going to do is it's kicking me out of FMC and back to Security Cloud Control. So eventually it will load up. But what I want to do, I've got it set up to where it's looking at the last hour of data. So I'm just going to go browsing through here. I've seen a lot of Umbrella DNS IP addresses. We're just going to go ahead and browse some more here. And let's go take a look at, let's see what this one is that went through. Uncategorized, unknown. Well, that's great. We'll take a look at this one. Also uncategorized, unknown. Okay. Trying to see, oh, these are all UDP. Let's go take a look at some TCP ones here. So here went to an Amazon AWS. So basically what I'm pointing out here is I can look at the file or the activity, and I can see what was traveling and across the network, the action that was allowed, and then that way I can run some analysis on some of the traffic on the firewall. Okay, I'm going to hop back over, and we're going to go back onto that Linux machine, and we're going to try hitting those websites again. Obviously one should work, one should fail. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up this web browser again. This time we're going to go to cisco.com. Everything should be fine. This should work. And it does. Okay. Now let's go to the other one, BetMGM. And if we notice, it's just kind of spinning. It's not doing anything. So while that was just spinning and spinning and not unable to resolve the DNS IP, let's go in here and let's add a filter. And I'm just going to say action block. Okay, and we are going to go ahead and add that filter. Over the last 1 hour, sometimes it takes a while to populate. And there it is. Okay, we blocked it. It said it came from the IP of that Linux machine and was going there, BetMGM, URL category. So there we have it. Configured it, made some changes, showed before and after. So now that I've had this out, I've played with it, I've gone through a little bit of a tutorial on getting it set up, applying some policy. What are my thoughts on the Firepower 1010 from Cisco? So first of all, it is a very capable device. So for what it is in this little package, very powerful. One of the things I'm going to point out here is this absolutely, as I said, when talking about the specs, this is really for the remote office, the branch office. There are higher power firewalls you can get for larger networks where you need higher bandwidth, more capacity for inspection, and so on. So things like within the Firepower line, you have the 1120, the 1140, and the 1150. And those are rack mount systems. Those are also systems that have fans because they're going to go into a data center and airflow through the rack. This one, because it's for desktop deployment and has a fanless design, well, the good thing about it is it's quiet because there's no fan spinning. Literally right next to it, I have a cluster of Raspberry Pis with 4 fans in it, and it is just going and spinning and making, it's a little bit of noise. It's not too bad. But this guy right here is quiet. Downside to the fanless design is it gets hot. Particularly if there's a lot of traffic going through it, or like as I was just doing, applying a lot of configuration. Right now I got my hand on it. It is actually hot. In fact, I can't hold it on there very long. I got to pull my hand off. So something to keep in mind. So if it gets overloaded with traffic, it's really going to start heating up on you. Great in the wintertime. You might be able to use it as a space heater for your room. The other issue that I did have with it is this constant resyncing of it. And I'm going to throw some video up as I talk about this. But basically about once a week, if I logged into FMC or logged into Security Cloud Center, it would say the device is out of sync. And likely this was because maybe Cisco Talos or Cisco Umbrella did a update to some of the information it had. And this device was now out of sync because of that update. It needed that push on it. So that's something that maybe it should be automated, but at the same time, I do understand there are some concerns for why it isn't. Maybe you as a company are doing some sort of spammy marketing practices, and so Cisco Talos or Cisco Umbrella adds you to their block list. So suddenly you end up blocking yourself. Don't do spammy advertising tactics. Okay? Please. You're just being an annoyance. But, that could be a possibility. Or maybe because bad guys out there are impersonating you and you get caught up in that. So there might be something like that. But there is a way you can put a scheduling in. You could say, hey, once a week, just go ahead and push the latest updates and sync up the device. You can absolutely go into that and do that through the scheduling. I didn't show that just due to time interest. The other thing about it is when I was going through the training with Cisco regarding this firewall, it was brought to my attention that if I were to just walk up to this thing and pull the power cord, I could potentially brick the firewall. And the reason is, unlike the previous ASA firewalls, or just about any other Cisco device out there that maintains a running config, as long as that config is saved, it will just simply reboot. This one does all its configuration through databases. And so if it's in the middle of writing to a database when the power gets pulled or it loses power, it could corrupt the database, and that could actually brick the system. So my advice there, and what I actually did with this, was I hooked it up to a UPS, an uninterruptible power supply. So there's a battery backup. So if for some reason I have a power failure, it is still going to be on battery for a while. That will allow me to do a graceful shutdown. The other thing about this here is, while the user interface is greatly improved over what has been for Cisco firewalls, definitely greatly improved over the ASA, and of course even more over the old PIX firewalls, the entire time I'm going through it, as I've mentioned, where I have to do the config, save the config, deploy the config, wait for the deployment, and then see what happens, see if the config worked. And then also there's the bouncing back and forth. So if I want to do the configuration of it, I go into FMC from Security Cloud Control. But then once I've done the configuration, if I want to actually do some traffic analysis, it kicks me out of FMC and back into Security Cloud Control. So there's this sort of back and forth that's going on with it. And the entire time I've been working with this, I have just been kind of thinking of, there's another product that Cisco makes for security that has a much better user interface, and that would of course be Meraki. And the equivalent Meraki hardware to this would be a Meraki MX75. So you can go with this, or you could go with an MX75. Now, why would you choose one or the other? Now, as I said, the user interface for Meraki is much kinder, gentler. I actually run my home network on Meraki. I have been doing so for nearly 10 years now. I absolutely love it. But there is a give and take. And that give and take is, while the user interface in this is not as good as Meraki, you've seen from the configuration, you can get really detailed in your controls on it. And you can get really granular, and I really just scratched the surface. You can configure VPN, you can manage identity, there's traffic decryption, all this fun stuff here. The Meraki, while you have a better user interface, you lose some of that granularity. So there's that kind of give and take. Now, maybe you have a dedicated IT team that you want that granularity, or maybe you are the dedicated IT team, the IT guy, and you want to have full granularity over it. Here you go. But maybe you're running a small business and you don't really have a dedicated technical person, and you just want to get it up and running, configured with some basic configs. The Meraki MX75 would probably be my recommendation in that environment. So it's really just sort of a give and take. What is it that you are looking to prefer? The other area where I see this benefiting is maybe you have a large office with the higher power FPR 1120, 1140, or 1150, but now you've also got some small offices, some remote offices, branch offices, and you want to deploy a firewall locally, but you want to manage it with the same management as those higher power firewalls you have back at the main location. Again, you'll have it all thrown into Security Cloud Control, and you can just manage it all through that single pane of glass, that single entry. Granted, Meraki does the same thing through its cloud environment, but again, it's what of the higher Meraki devices maybe you have, or maybe you already have the higher powered firepowers in your environment. So, as I said, give and take. Those are just simply my thoughts on this device. All right, so there we have it, the Firepower 1010 review setup. Let me know if that was helpful to you, if you've played around or if you've managed these Firepower 1010s. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, go ahead and hit that like button, because clearly you've made it to the end of the video. And if you want to see more of what I have to offer on this channel, hit the subscribe button too. So I'm currently working on going through some IP routing protocols. I've already done a subnetting and an intro to IP routing. I've got an OSPF video in the works. So if you want to see that when it comes out, hit that subscribe button. That will be your friend. Also, I did mention a Meraki device. Here within the next couple of months, I might be able to get my hands on a Meraki MX device. So if that's the case, I will review it here. And once again, that subscribe button is your friend. I'm also going to go ahead and post some links down in the description below to help you with your learning journey. If maybe you're studying for a CCNP security, of which you got to know what's going on with these devices. And if that's the case, go ahead and check out those links below. They are affiliate links to some learning content, so do with that information what you will. And otherwise, keep learning, keep improving, keep studying, and I will see you in the next video.